Zbrush has a plugin called UV Master that makes it really easy to make some quick and dirty UV layouts for texturing. However, if you wanted to do anything beyond the very basics, you had to export the model to another program like Maya or Blender to edit the UVs. Actually, you can do some moderate UV editing right inside of Zbrush, but it's kind of hidden. In this video, I'll show you what can be done and how to do it. Okay, so we've got this model. It's got an inside, so it's been shelled. And what I want to do is lay out the UVs, but be able to edit the UVs for the inside of the model separate from the outside. I'm going to hit Shift F to turn on my wireframe. So you can see we've got polygroups by color here. I'm going to turn off the floor because it's kind of in the way. So we've got an outer polygroup, we've got a polygroup for the inside, and this yellow one for the border. So let's go ahead and turn off polyframe. And what I want to do is lay out the UVs. So let's go into Z plugin, get UV Master open. And what I want to do is keep polygroups on. This will split every polygroup into its own UV shell. Okay, just go ahead and click Unwrap. Oh, we just get this quick warning. I actually had to be on the lowest subdivision level to use UV Master, so I'm just going to hit Shift D to go down. And now we'll try that again. All right, this will just take a minute or two while Zbrush thinks about how to flatten this model into UV shells. Okay, it looks like it finished. Let's just make sure it looks okay. I'm going to go to UV map and let's click Morph UV. Okay, so you can see the outside of the model got split to this shell. The inside is flattened to this shell, and that border is right here. Now there's some edits that I want to make to this UV layout. For example, the inside shell is taking up a lot of the UV space when I'm not really ever going to see it. I don't need to have a lot of room in this texture map for it. So one thing I can do when I edit this is to shrink this down. I could also shrink down this border to get it out of the way. And that'll leave room so that I can increase the size of the part of the texture that I actually want to see. All right, let's go ahead and turn this off again. And let's actually go into solo mode so that we're only seeing the main head and body and not the glasses. So to edit this, let's go into Z plugin. And under UV Master, what we need to do to edit the UVs is work on a clone. So we can't edit the UVs directly of a model that has subdivision levels or textures, but what we can do is create a secondary tool that we can work on that doesn't have any subdivision levels or colors. And then when we're done, we can copy the UVs from that edited version and paste them onto our model that has all the color and the subdivision levels. Okay, so we've made a copy. You can see it here in our toolbox. We've got the original, and then we've got this cloned version. So let's go into Z plugin again and flatten it. Okay, so we can see the UV layout, and it's a little bit neater here because we've got this grid that shows us the extents of the UVs. Okay, so one thing I can do is scale these UVs down, the ones that I don't really care about so much. So I'm just going to drag out a scale manipulator and just click and drag. Now one thing you'll notice is it's scaling everything, but we can quickly and easily make it just scale this one shell. So let's go to Brush, Auto Masking, and Mask by Polygroups. Let's bring this all the way up to 100. So now what it'll do is it'll only operate on the first polygroup that I touch. So I drew out this manipulator from this polygroup, so that means that's the only polygroup that's going to be affected by this. Then I can switch into move mode and maybe just kind of move this up into the corner, up and out of the way. Let's go ahead and do that again with the border piece here. I'm just going to drag out a manipulator. And since that was the polygroup that we clicked on with the manipulator, that's the only one that gets affected because I have that mask by polygroup turned on. Go into rotate mode, maybe move mode. We just want to get this kind of out of the way and off to the side. Okay, let's go ahead and work on this one. Now, since we want the outside shell to be the most important one, let's scale this up. We'll just kind of move it and rotate it so that it's using as much of this UV space as possible without going over the edges. Might take a little bit of back and forth to get this moved and scaled and rotated so it's using the UV space as efficiently as possible. All right, that's pretty close. I could get it a little bit more efficient, but that's close enough. Go back into draw mode. Something else you could do here if you wanted to is smooth this out a little bit. So I'm going to zoom in, and you can see there might be some areas that are a little bit problematic. I can hold down Shift and kind of smooth out any areas that might be doing weird things. Now you notice this also smooths out the borders, which I might not necessarily want to have happen. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. And we can make it so it doesn't smooth the borders by going into masking. And under mask by feature, let's turn off crease and groups and just mask the border. So you can see we've got a darkened edge around this shell. That means that edge is masked. And so when we smooth it, it's not going to smooth out the overall shape. It's just going to smooth the UVs within it. Okay, let's go ahead and clear that mask. And then we can also use any of the sculpting tools. Now you can't really sculpt in 3 dimensions on a 2D UV layout, but you can use the Move tool, for example, BMV. And if you wanted to, you could kind of shift the shape of these around a little bit. You kind of want to know what you're doing. You don't want to just start shifting these shapes around willy-nilly. You want to kind of have an idea of an objective you're going for by moving these, but it's very powerful to do this. You might want to even turn on AccuCurve for this, so you can kind of pull on that with a sharper point. This might be useful for helping this take up more of the UV space too. Kind of fill in some of this dead space. Okay, you usually don't want to go too crazy editing the shape of the UVs beyond where the UV master puts it, but a little bit of adjusting can help you use this space more efficiently. Okay, when we're done making these changes, we can go to Z plugin, unflatten under the UV master palette. And so now we've got UVs edited on this clone version. What we need to do is copy them and then go back to the original model, go back to Z plugin and paste UVs. And now this model that has the subdivision levels and the color that we like has the new UVs. So let's go to UV map and click on Morph UV just to make sure. I'm going to zoom out a bit here so we can see everything. All right, it's a little bit upside down. I could try to bring it around here. Okay, so you can see that this is up in the corner where we put it, and this has the modifications that we made. That's great. Now when we morph the UVs, we can see that it's the version we adjusted. Granted, you can't do any advanced UV editing in Zbrush, nothing like cutting new seams or doing other advanced operations. However, if all you need to do is tweak the size, positioning, and smoothness of the UV shells, it's a lot faster to do it this way than it is to export the model to another program and then import it back to Zbrush.